Gravity is the distortion of space-time, but what does that mean? What it means is, gravity distorts light, and space and time are measured with light. The word space has more than one meaning. Firstly, space is a concept, where things are separated by space, and take up space. But some people use the word to mean spaces that have been measured with light. An object takes up space, it has a size. In one direction, the object has a length. Two objects are separated by a distance. A size, distance or length, is a measured space. You measure this space by comparing it to something. You can measure anything against anything, because measurements are comparisons. But comparing something to itself is a mistake. For example, the Earth is moving nowhere with reference to the Earth. In the same way, the speed of light is constant when it is compared to itself. The Earth is not fixed, and the speed of light is not constant when measured another way. Light is just one of many things to measure space with. Like this spring. This plant is one spring length. It might grow compared to the spring, or shrink. I will call this spring length. This rocket is 10 lengths. As the rocket accelerates, length contracts. This is what a 10-length rocket looks like when accelerating. The length of a spring is constant when it is measured against itself. It is one spring high on the moon or the sun. You could say gravity is a reduction in length. Or, gravity, like acceleration, compresses the springs that measure space. This ruler defines a straight line. Here is what happens to a straight line on the moon, Earth, and sun. I could say gravity bends space. This is another way of saying, gravity bends the thing I use to measure straight lines. For Einstein, space must be measured with light. The speed of light is constant, because it is measured against itself. It travels in a straight line, because it defines straight lines. But I could just as easily, and wrongly, measure against the speed of something else. Try measuring space using the speed of my bicycle. A bike meter is the distance my bicycle travels in a second. I travel quicker on the moon, and slower on the sun. But I always travel a bike meter in a second, because a bike meter is how far I travel in a second. Therefore the speed of bike is constant. If I call a bike meter space, then gravity shrinks space. This is another way of saying gravity slows my bike. Speed is distance over time, so with a known speed and distance I can measure time. I will use the speed of bike for speed, and an Earth bike meter for distance. A bike second is the time I take to cycle this distance. I measure a bike second as slower on the sun, and quicker on the moon. If I call a bike second time, I can say gravity slows time. What happens if I ride somewhere so heavy that I stop cycling? The spaces I measure have shrunk to nothing. It will take forever to travel an Earth meter. So the time I measure stretches to infinity. As you approach the speed of bike, a bike meter takes up less space. At the speed of bike, measures of space have reduced to nothing. It is impossible to measure anything faster, unless you measure time backwards. This is not a property of light, or bike, it is a measurement error. Another example of a measurement error is cosmic inflation. Measure the space between these balloons in balloon widths. Space is increasing between them. Space is inflating, like the early universe. In other words, our reference balloon is deflating. When you hear that space is contracting or inflating, what that means is, spaces are being measured smaller or larger. In other words, the thing used to measure those spaces is changing. When you hear, time itself slows, all that means is, the thing used to measure time has slowed. When you hear the speed of light is constant, all that means is, light is being used to measure spaces and times in itself. When you hear light travels in a straight line in curved space-time, it means light is being used to measure straight lines. When you hear gravity is a distortion in space-time, all that means is, gravity slows light. A black hole is just a big star measured with stopped light. You can challenge many far-fetched views of the cosmos, from the Big Bang to extra dimensions. When you get the difference between space and specific measured spaces,